because only a few days ago I was reminded of my first encounter with the works of Poe. I was in 3rd or 4th grade, so it must have been either 8 or 9, and we were reading The Telltale Heart, in a German translation, of course. Or maybe it was read to us. Oh, I can't quite remember. I don't even know if we were actually told the name of the author. Well, we probably were. But if so, that information obviously went straight into one ear and out of the other. Because even back then I had no interest in people. However, I only mentioned this because even though I did not care who the author was, the story itself, or rather images that it created in my head, they left a deep impression on me, and I was strangely attracted to the story. I felt there was an enormous power behind it. But since I was young, I didn't really understand the connection. I didn't know why I felt the way I felt. The images, however, that were conjured up that day, they never left me. I still remember them. So flash forward a few years. At the age of 12, when my depression started to become heavier, and I thought of suicide as an option for the first time, and sort of gradually drew the cloak of darkness around me, if you wish, and slowly descended into the world of shadows. And in the course of that, I tried to find solace in the world of classical, fantastic literature. And you cannot imagine my relief, that sense of destiny, if you wish, when I discovered that someone I had already encountered had actually been waiting for me there all the time. Would Poe be the perfect reflection of your soul? This may be an embarrassing thing to admit, but honestly, I have no idea how right you are. When I began to work on Poetica, I approached the poems from the outside, if you know what I mean. I met them like old friends or acquaintances, ghosts I had already encountered in the past. But when the album was completed, and that's actually the embarrassing part, I had completely forgotten that those words had originally been written by a different person. I felt like they were my own. I had made them my own. In fact, I felt more like Soper than Soper did. If that makes any sense to you. So I didn't just adapt them to music. I adapted them to myself. There is a sound, a sort of funeral whistling that comes often in your music, especially since Children of the Corn, for instance on Dreamland, or the wonderful The Haunted Palace. Oh, thank you. It makes me think of old horror movies. Are those movies getting a growing influence in your work? I know what you mean. That's the old theremin. The sound is almost synonymous with all black and white science fiction horror movies, yes. It's this sort of instrument you literally expect to hear when you think of these films. And I can't deny that I'm actually very fond of it. I've always been. It suits me perfectly. Aside from the so eerie atmosphere it creates, it's also a lovely bridge between the coldness of the synthesizer and the warmth of the violins. It combines, it balances the extremes, and that's what I'm all about. Do you like the movie The Oblong Box with Vincent Price and Christopher Lee? That's the only Poe story that you interpret, which is not a poem but a story. To be honest, I can't remember it. I know that I've watched it, but it obviously didn't leave any impression on me, otherwise I would remember it. Unlike Roger Corman's adaptation of The Fall of the House of Usher, also with the divine Vincent Price in dark velvet and bleached hair, and generally divine and beautiful and breathtaking. In fact, I would go so far as to say that that is my favourite Poe adaptation. That one definitely had a lasting impression on me to this very day. Was it hard to choose the poems that you would put to music? No. And yes. And no. Where shall I begin? Okay. When you listen to Harvest Moon, which is the last track on Children of the Corn, you can hear that there's a distinct De La Sarabande vibe in the string section. Well, maybe you can't hear it because it's rather short and there's a lot of stuff going on. But it is there. Take my word for it. Well, actually, I can play it for you. Wait a second. So, this is the kind of mood I was in when the album closed, when I finished it. So, after I had finished Children of the Corn, I had this feeling that I really needed to go and clean up my house, as in to revisit old recordings that I'd never been happy with. Those that still carried an importance and that were still relevant to me, those I still felt a connection with. And naturally the first thing that came to mind were the Poe adaptations. And most of all, Alone, from that unlistenable piece of shit Spiral Travel album. God, I hate that thing. But that's public knowledge. I'm allowed to say that. I did it. You see, my initial idea was to do me a 12-inch single with The Sleep on one side, maybe, and Alone and Dreamland on the other. But then suddenly Alone had a twin brother, and on top of that my label suggested I should do a 7-track mini album instead of a 12-inch single, so I thought, what the hell, and redid all the Poe tracks. when you're still in the early stages of an album, things tend to be vague, and you're not always sure in what direction the album wants to go. You're not quite certain of its purpose, but as you work on it, things always become clearer gradually. And so after a while I realised that Poetica in fact wanted to be an album, and for this I needed more material. So initially, on a conscious level, that was the only reason why I was looking for further poems to put the music. But naturally I just couldn't pick anything at random. There had to be a connection. And A Dream Within a Dream, of course, was an obvious choice. And the only other two poems I could think of doing were The Haunted Palace and The City in the Sea. And the funny thing about City in the Sea was that I had never really read it before. I mean, yes, I did read it once or twice, but only cursory, and as a consequence, I'd never really understood it. Also because, in my memory, it had blended together with Jacques Tourneur's film The City Under the Sea, also with Vincent Price. Which I guess is why I always believe that the poem describes sort of ghostly submarine habitat. What a joke. And with The Haunted Palace it was similar, even though it's actually part of my all-time favourite Poe story, the masterpiece, which is The Fall of the House of Usher. I was never really aware of it. Again, yes, I had read it a few times on its own, but because of my careless reading, I actually believed that the poem was about a haunted building. I mean, how ridiculous is that? Can you believe it? However, when the album was finished, The Haunted Palace turned out to be the one song that actually makes me shiver. It still does. And when I listen to the album in one sitting, the very moment the song ends and the first notes of the last song begin, I start to cry every time. So when I began working on Poetica, the poems and I were merely like friends or acquaintances. But when I was finished, we had become one. Did you re-record all musical versions already made because you didn't like the first substance anymore? The new Conqueror Worm, Sleep and Eldorado are all slower and less synthetic. Keyboards and electronic effects are totally banished in those new versions. No, not all of them. I actually quite like the instrumental version of The Conqueror Worm and Sanatorium Alt Rosa. I could have pronounced that German, but and even Eldorado from Songs from the Inverted Womb I was always fine with. The Sleeper, however, no, I didn't like that one a bit. Ironically, I thought that that would be the one track I would have the least trouble with, just record it again in superb quality and well, that job done. But no, it's just never that easy. moment I put the CD in the player, I felt like running out of the room. God, it was dreadful. To me, the old version, was repetitive, boring, and generally awful. I mean, I did still like the melodies and all. They were beautiful. But the song needed serious improvement, which it got, and now it's perfect. Do you conceive the ancient body of art as something needing permanent recreation, updating? No. No one has done correctly in the first place. Only when the inner conflict, which had been the source and reason to create the song in the first place, hasn't been properly dissolved. In other words, when the topic is still relevant, then yes, it sometimes can be necessary to have a look at the song again. When there's an instrumental part in a song, is that a way for you to translate what the blank of the poem makes you feel? A manner to catch the listener's attention on something that he could not notice, because nothing is written between the verses. Yes. I remember a similar question from a German magazine, only with a more negative attitude, regarding the song To Walk Behind the Rose from Children of the Corn. I actually suggested that I had run out of words halfway through the track. I mean, imagine, yeah. What they obviously didn't know or understand was that even without words, you can still tell a story, simply by choosing your orchestration, your instruments accordingly. There is atmosphere, melody, all these things, they all have meaning. They transport information. They're not just pretty noise, In Dreamland, for example, there's a reoccurring instrumental phrase that has the same function as a chorus in a pop song. It repeats and emphasizes the essence of the song. Naturally, there's no such thing as a poem, a chorus in the original poem. So here the instrumental part gives you space and time. It allows for you to let what you've just heard sink in. Space is important in music. It's not just the notes. Why have you chosen to make an instrumental version of Alone, as in Alone 2, whereas there wasn't one on Voyager? How do you perceive the link between the two parts? Oh, it just happened. It needed a twin brother. That's how it wanted to materialize. It was just too complex for one entity. It's, as I just said, instrumental music does transport information as well. So, just listen to it, maybe you'll figure it out. Are there other poets you would like to explore through your music? No, not really. Could you tell me some words about the booklet which goes with the CD? I didn't have a chance to see it yet. Whom would you work with to create it? There are actually two different editions. The vinyl version and, as you just said, the CD book. The vinyl cover features an older photo from the Have You Seen This Ghost session, which is photographed by Ingo Römling. and that was later transformed by Natalie Shaw. It also comes with 2 posters and a booklet of wonderful black and white illustrations by Keith Thompson, which is somewhat reminiscent in style of Harry Clarke's Poe drawings. It's all really beautiful and otherworldly, if you wish. The CD book, on the other hand, it features, 156 pages of mere photos. It's not meant to be particularly artistic. It's just photos, if that makes any sense to you. It's not supposed to be a visual translation of the poems. It's more like a simple private photo album. What's your favourite of Poe's poems? Oh, that's a funny sentence. I feel something very strong with The Sleeper when I'm listening to your version. My favourite poem has always been Dreamland. But that's not true anymore, because now it's Poetica in its entirety. That may sound odd, even arrogant, but I don't mean it like that. It's an entity of its own now. Poetica is my very own connection to Poe, the spirit of Poe. What does it mean for you to end this album with A Dream Within a Dream, the most lightful and maybe the most moving song of all for me? Which personal feelings does it reveal? A desire to leave life and vanish into the light. A Dream Within a Dream was the only possible conclusion of the album. It's the moment when I cannot hold back my tears any longer. There is a moment in the haunted palace when everything becomes quiet and there is the sound of wind blowing over the tops of the ruins. And that's when there's a chill running down my spine. Literally, I can feel my heart in my throat. Everything, it's pulled together inside of me. And when the first notes of A Dream Within a Dream start, I can feel the tears running down my face every single time. It is a very sad song. You had told me when Children of the Corn was released that every piece of your work was like a seed that you could watch growing. What do you feel now when you're listening to the Triptychon of Ghosts? Oh, I still like it, fortunately. But of course it's completely different than Poetica. Ghosts was meant as a sexorcism. It is naughty, ironic, sarcastic, all that. And in comparison, almost loud. Poetica is the exact opposite of that. Do you regularly come back and listen to the previous works you've made? Or is there a detachment phenomenon for you once the thing's done? Both. I do feel detached from my old recordings, like they were done with someone else, not me. And when I listen to them, for that reason, I'm therefore always surprised how complex the songs are, and how insightful. It's strange, really. I go like, gosh, it's brilliant, how did you know? Well, then I remember. Have you started to work on new material? Oh gosh, you're nosy. Yes, I actually have. I have recorded an album. Well, now you know. And if it goes to plan, it will be out in February. Thank you for your answers. Oh, you're welcome. I guess that you hate interviews and that it seems useless for you to explain something that we should be able to feel when listening to your music. Would you say there's a part of you suffering when you face promotion obligations? Well, it's not that I expect people to understand any of the super albums, what they are about, or even to feel what I feel. I mean, that's silly, it's ridiculous, it's impossible. No, the reason why I find interviews that are meant to promote an album extremely difficult, if not to say downright annoying, is because all I wanted to say, all I needed to express, has been said on the album in question. In other words, when an album is completed, I have nothing left to say. So, each time I receive questions from magazines, my reaction is always, God, can't you just listen to the album and leave me the fuck alone? Well, that's it, there you have it. Sorry.